Welcome back, y'all, to the Bullpen. This is our sub-series within the Church Street podcast where we are taking a chance to just continue the conversation. This past week, Pastor Keva and myself both were able to preach sermons, and there's some stuff left on the threshing floor that I think we can bring back up. I hope that's what you have, because Here we are.
Yeah. Well, but there's always more that we want to bring out, or some things we wanted to dig into a little bit more. So that makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today we are here to talk about this new sermon series that we started that we're calling Jesus the Masterclass. And hear us when we say we don't consider ourselves the masters by any means, but we're excited to walk through it with you. And we are joined by our friend, Paul Beals, as he is our production manager, as I like to say. He makes sure that we look good and we sound good. He has pretty backdrops for us to sit in front of. And this is Pastor Keva Green, and I am Pastor Zach Stiefel. And today we are going to see really the only glimpse we get into Jesus as a child. And it's a powerful story. It's one that I think can open up our imagination when we let it to, because I loved what you said in your sermon this past week of we see the space in between. We see Jesus born, and we're in the Christmas capital of Texas, so we know this story very, very well, of course. But then we fast forward 12 years, and then we see this glimpse of Jesus as a boy, and then we fast forward another 18 years.
Yeah, those are big gaps.
Big gaps. He's almost spreading his arms for us there. But let's look at what we read and what we talked about this week. I'm going to read for us. This is Luke chapter 2. This will be verses 41 through 52. I'm reading out of the ESV. That's the extra spiritual version for those who are keeping count. So this is Luke 2, verse 41. It says, "Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. And when the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it. But supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But then they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem, searching for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, 'Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress.' And he said to them, 'Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?' And they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all these things in her heart." Verse 52. "And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man." So, Keva, we look at this now. You're 3-4 days removed from preaching the sermon. What are you taking away from it today?
Okay. Well, I'm still fascinated, and you talked about those gaps of 12 and then 18, that there's just kind of those summary statements, both before this even starts, which just kind of takes you from birth all the way up to the 12, and then the summary statement at the end that takes you all the way from this point up to, when his baptism. And I'll go back and read them. The one that was before, it started right before where you started reading, and it just says, "And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him." And isn't that what we'd want for all of our children? For them to be growing and being strong and have the grace of God on them. And then the one at the end is very similar to it, and you hit it quite a bit in your sermon too, about, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men." And so it's like, even if we don't know everything else that happened before and after that point, those are great summary statements, but they're also great statements of what we want for our children, but what we want for ourselves too.
Yeah.
That That it's not just a faith that we sits stagnant,
Right.
yeah, wherever we are, but that we're constantly growing in wisdom and grace from God.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love best about the Wesleyan approach to theology is sanctification is not a you are sanctified moment. It is a we are going on toward sanctification.
Right. You're constantly growing and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good.
And so as you read this, as we look at the story of Jesus in the temple, I want us to think about Mary's response a little bit. When you see her finally find the boy,
yeah. What
do you think she's going through at this moment?
Well, in the first place, she's been searching for 3 days and just, a mother's heart, but a parent's heart.
Yeah.
You lose your child, and he's 12, and at 13 he would be considered a man, but it doesn't matter how old your kids are.
Right.
They're still your kids, your little boys. But particularly for a 12-year-old, it was very firm in the Jewish law that they were still the responsibility of the parents. Mm-hmm. And the parents were responsible for their accountability of how they acted and how they were before God. And just that panic of knowing, where is my child?
Mm-hmm.
We don't see about kidnapping and all that stuff going on back then, or children's faces on milk cartons, or Amber Alerts and so forth. But it's still, with that huge crowd of wondering where in the world he is. And so I think whenever she saw him, she's so relieved, but at the same time, she's probably hurt and angry and frustrated and everything else. And you kind of see that in her response when she says, son, and actually that's in Greek, that word is child. It's not son, it's child. Why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. And so it's kind of like she's blaming him for, you've been lost. So what are your thoughts?
You can almost see a mirror of who Jesus is in this, in the sense of if we think about the grand scope of who he is and what he did and why he did it. He came to dwell among us. I like the way the Message puts it, is he came to live in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
To find us. And he did exactly what Mary does here. He searched and he sought after and he distressed over finding us. And then he does. And so when I read that, what I'm seeing is we're getting a glimpse at the way that he was raised, but what he would do in the years to come and what he continues to do today, that he continues to search for and seek and praise the Lord. He continues to find.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I do think that he is constantly after us because he wants our hearts and so forth. Mm-hmm. So he is wanting us to recognize him.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he knows where we are. So it's not a matter of not knowing where we are.
Sure.
It's more just him wanting us to turn our hearts over to him and recognize.
Yeah, he would leave the 99 to find the one.
That's right. Which is so good to know. You know.
Yeah. It's funny. There's a book that I've read, and it is a fictional book, but it tells the quote-unquote story of Jesus as a child, and it talks about his growing up best friend, his best bud. But the way the author depicts it is when they're growing up, they're playing Moses and the Exodus. That's the games that they're playing as a kid, and you have to be Pharaoh this time, and
David and Goliath and all that stuff. That's pretty good.
It's funny, isn't it? But I know it's fiction, but to think that's the boy who said, I'm going to be just like Moses someday. And then he finds himself staying in the temple because he couldn't be anywhere else.
Yeah.
This is where he had to be. It goes back to this idea of being rooted and finding your, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, finding your hope at the source. This is where he was going to be best connected to God the Father.
Yeah.
And specifically in this moment in time. And so, of course, he stayed.
Yeah, in his father's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. But don't you wonder, at that age, how much does he know? Because you know he's growing in God's grace and in wisdom, and we see that. And as a tiny infant, I wouldn't think he knows he's God. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's growing, and he's learning as a boy. He's learning more about God, but he is God. So that kind of brings in one of those things of, especially when he's in Jerusalem at Passover, does he recognize being in the temple, hey, I will be back here, and 18 years, actually 21 years.
21 years from
21 years from now, I'll be back here, and it'll be a totally different situation. It'll be Passover again in Jerusalem.
And I'll be gone, but you'll find me in 3 days.
Yeah.
Or I'll reappear in 3 days.
Right. So you just kind of wonder, is that just a constant growth?
Yeah.
Until he's pulled into ministry, or?
Yeah, it's a great question.
So,
and yeah, you have to wonder, like, at what point did Mary and Joseph be like, okay, Jesus, we need to tell you how you were born? Like, how does that conversation go?
He may have already known.
Let me tell y'all how I was born.
Yeah, I created everything. I spoke everything by the word. So, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a great question, and it's intriguing to wonder of how did he know, what did he know, and when did he know it?
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah.
And just think about what kind of kid he was. Now, both of us are the second child.
Right.
Which means we were
the perfect children, yeah.
Well, we had older siblings that, we kind of had to follow in their footsteps and so forth. You know? But can you imagine if Jesus was your older brother and your parents are saying, why can't you be a little bit more like Jesus?
Yeah, see what he's doing, do that.
He's really good. How would you like that?
Yeah. I think James is a really good example of this. That the book of James, the James that we read in the Bible, is the brother of Jesus.
Yeah.
Who, very clearly in Scripture, it says he did not believe that Jesus was who he was until after the resurrection.
That's right. Well, because he saw everything.
Yeah, he saw it all.
He grew up with him.
And then he was changed and he was transformed, and he was the person who Peter gave the keys to the Church of Jerusalem, First Methodist Jerusalem, probably. Yeah. And Paul liked that one. But yeah, surely Jesus do something, at least a little bit, but nobody else did, except for Mary and Joseph. I don't know. It's fun to think about what that childhood was like.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it'll be fun to ask him about it someday.
It will be. Well, it's interesting that this story is only in Luke, and we don't get anything else from Matthew, Mark, or John about any childhood experiences, which kind of makes you think back on the sources for the gospel. So, do you think this is part of the Q source that went into Luke? We know Matthew copied a lot from Mark, and John is totally different.
Yeah, John does his own thing.
Yeah. So, and we know that Luke pulled some things from Mark. The Gospel of Mark was written first, but that supposedly there's a Q source.
Yeah.
So, do you think that's part of it, or do you think Luke actually interviewed and talked to Mary? Because there's so much of a Mary influence, in the birth story, in this, at crucifixion.
That's my best guess, is that, because you're right, all of the Gospels, they start in different places, they come from different angles, they tell similar stories, yes, specifically Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and what we call those is the synoptic Gospels, so of the same source is where that comes from, and so they tell a lot of the same miracles, they tell a lot of the same stories, and John is doing John's thing, but when you look at Matthew, he was writing to a Jewish audience.
Right.
And so even from his earliest pages, you can tell his goal is to prove Jesus is who he was for the Jews.
Right.
That's why when Matthew starts, it starts with we're going to trace this guy, Jesus, back to David. That's his goal. Mark doesn't want to deal with the fluff.
Yeah, let's just go quick and tell all the exciting stuff.
There was one time this guy got baptized. Let me tell you what happened after that.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah, it's like a stream of consciousness writing. He did this, and then he did this, and then he gets excited about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Luke did. Because, of course, we can also turn from Luke to the book of Acts. That's volume 2.
Right.
And you get the same feeling out of both of these of he wanted to know it at its very core.
Yeah.
And even specifically in the book of Acts, what you start to see is you can see his role in the story too. We were on the boat. We went to this place. So he gives off this impression of, I can tell this story because in Acts I lived it.
Yeah.
But because I've heard about it. Like I saw these things happen and I talked to the people who were present in the moment.
Yeah, he really digs into it. And possibly, too, since he's a Gentile, sort of writing for the Gentiles, knowing that he's got to explain it a little bit more. Because some things for a Jew would just know things,
right.
you know. But for a Gentile, he's trying to explain it a little bit more. So it's like he's digging and maybe trying to interview and put a little bit more in there as far as explanation.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the very end of the Gospel of John, he has 2 phrases in there that one is, because he said, I write this book so that you may believe, which is amazing. Next thing he says is, if I were to write down everything that happened, there are not enough books in this world to contain it.
Yeah.
So we're getting just a scratch of the surface.
Yeah, so
right?
if you can't put everything, you're just picking out the things that, for the audience that you're writing to, that you think they need to know.
Yeah, and praise the Lord, Luke gave us even a glimpse of Jesus as a child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's, like you said at the beginning of this, that's the challenge for us, is that we could do what Jesus did in verse 52, that we could increase in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man, that we would continue to press on, we would continue to grow, we would continue to faithfully seek the Lord in such a way that we are growing in all of these areas: wisdom, stature, favor with God, favor with the people around us.
Yeah. Which is probably a good way to end it, too,
Yeah.
is that is our goal.
I think so.
Good.
So, y'all, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Paul, thank you for making us look good and sound good along the way. We are grateful for times like these where what happens at this place doesn't end on a Sunday.
That's right.
And that God can meet you wherever you are, hopefully through something like this, through a conversation like this one, whether you are walking the dog, you're driving to work, you're doing the dishes, whatever it may be. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.